Hey everyone, my name is Brian. You are watching DC Unleashed, and we have a great video for you today. Fandango came out on their official YouTube page, a cast talk. They're talking about Superman's suit, Lex Luthor's weaknesses, the expansion of the DCU, and a lot of really cool stuff was revealed in this interview. We are going to scan through it together, me and you, and look at every big reveal. And I'm going to save you guys like 20 minutes of time, and I'm going to get to only the good stuff in this Fandango exclusive interview with James Gunn, Nicholas Hoult, David Corenswet, and Rachel Brosnahan. Let's get right into it. But before we do, please do me a favor, hit the like button and hit the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about this interview and about Superman. Are you hyped up? Because, man, we are getting closer and closer and closer to an amazing July. So do me a favor, do all that stuff, and if you're not subscribed, also subscribe. Why not? Because I plan to be here every day talking about DCU. Let's jump right into it.
Let's do it. About to interrogate you right now, beginning with you, James. Big two-parter to start here. Ooh. Can you tell me a little bit about making sure that this movie feels like a full story all on its own, but also doesn't necessarily set up other films, but just tease up your growing DC film universe for success going forward?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is that this works as a movie by itself. It's a complete story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's an important part of the life of all three of the characters that these people play. That's by far the most important. At the same time, we're introducing a whole new world, which is a lot of fun. You know, we're in an alternate reality where superheroes have existed for 300 years.
This is very cool. So first off, in Superman, superheroes, supervillains, meta-humans have existed for 300 years. That's a big deal. And what they don't say here is that there is a post-credit scene on Superman. So at the end of Superman, be prepared for a post-credit scene that further sets up the universe. And James Gunn did say that the post-credit scene will not just be a one-and-done, fun, whatever. It's going to be a significant, substantial look into the future of the DCU.
Every time kids came on set, it really is like Santa Claus, you know, and all the kids are just like, oh my gosh, it's Superman. And in a way, I think it's even more powerful than seeing somebody like in a Spider-Man or Batman costume or something. Yeah, although your son, I remember your son's favorite character was Mr. Handsome.
Me, then Mr. Handsome. Yeah. No, it was Mr. Handsome. He kept on talking about Mr. Handsome the whole time. He would be laying in bed and then he'd be like, Dad, Mr. Handsome.
Mr. Handsome is Lex's, creature he created in a petri dish that drives around on this, flying platform.
Strange alien.
The ugliest, grossest creature in the world.
All right, so now we know what that weird creature was, that naked white thing that we talked about in the trailer and a couple other times. That is Mr. Handsome. So apparently that is a creature that Lex created in a petri dish, and he flies around the platform. So it's like his little pilot guy. And apparently their kids all loved Mr. Handsome. I'm pretty glad that we finally got an answer to that, because a lot of people were speculating as to whether that was White Martian or some kind of clone of Superman or whatever. And now we know it is a creature that Lex grew in a petri dish that is super ugly and flies around on their platform. So basically it's Lex Luthor's platform pilot.
Just for the record.
Yeah, I think it was at the end of the first week of shooting, we shot part of the sequence that you see in the teaser trailer where the kaiju is blasting fire in Metropolis. And that was my first moment as Superman getting to check on people. There's a moment where I just check in with the bystanders and make sure that everybody's okay. And that felt like a very Superman moment where I sort of wasn't worried about myself or how I looked anymore, or the fact that I was strung up by wires. I was just worried about, everybody else.
Yeah, I love that. I hope that we get a lot of Superman saving people, helping people, being Superman, being that hope, that inspiration that Superman is for, everyone. The character is an American icon. And part of that iconography is that he is eternally hopeful. He is inspiring. And we need to make sure I hope, anyways, that James Gunn has included plenty of that in this movie. And so I hope that we get to see a lot of Superman just saving people, just doing what Superman does best and inspiring.
Your Superman suit looking like day one, and how does it compare to the finished version everyone's going to see in the final film?
The only thing I knew is that I didn't want it to look too much like a wet T-shirt. You know, I didn't want to have muscles that were, built into the suit. I wanted to create, a world where metahumans actually existed, but that also they wore these uniforms for various reasons, and that it was, in a way, a uniform. So I just kind of went from there, working with Juliana, who did all my costumes for Guardians of the Galaxy, and just kind of taking it, bit by bit by bit by bit, until we ended up with the beautiful suit that we ended up with. And, also getting David's input, frankly. I mean, was, as we started to build it up around him, getting his ideas. One of the biggest questions was, were we going to have trunks, or we were going to, not
That's
have
a great
trunks?
question.
I talked to Zack Snyder, who was like, I tried a billion different versions with the trunks, and at the end of the day, I tried it, but I couldn't get there. And I was feeling exactly the same way. And Juliana and I talked, and she said, all right, well, I'm going to try, we'll do one version where we try both trunks and not trunks. I went in with David. He tried in not trunks, and he tried in trunks. And I still was going to go with not trunks. And then you said,
Well, you wanted trunks in theory. You
in
liked the
theory,
idea of trunks.
theoretically, I liked the idea of trunks because it's, Superman I grew up with.
But the problem is they look kind of silly. You were looking for a way to make them look cool.
They do look kind of silly. That's true. But I also like that they used the trunks. I know they're a little silly, but because I grew up with a Superman that had trunks on, whether it be Christopher Reeve's Superman or in cartoons and comics, I wanted him to have trunks. And one thing that disappointed me about Man of Steel is that, the costume did look too much like a wet T-shirt with built-in muscles, even though I know for a fact that Henry Cavill's muscles are huge. That wasn't the case. But it just looked sort of dark. It didn't look like that. It didn't look like the same Superman that I grew up with. So this one definitely.
Or you were looking for a function, an explanation for having
A
them that would
reason why they would
justify
be
them.
there, yeah.
And my thing was just maybe they're supposed to look a little silly. Maybe the reason he wears them is to look a little silly, basically to undermine how powerful he really is.
In this version of the DCU, everyone knows he's an alien. He shoots beams out of his eyes. He can blow things down with his breath. He's sort of this terrifying creature. And David saying that was like, but he really likes kids and human beings and people, and he wants kids not to be afraid of him. And
That's a cool reason to have the trunks, almost like a luchador costume or wrestling costume. They're a little bright, a little bit silly. Superman, who is the most powerful being on the planet, maybe in the universe, but he's also in this bright blue, red, and orange costume with, underoos on. I guess it works. Either way, I like it because that's the Superman I grew up with, so I'll take it.
I want to dig into the Clark and Lois relationship. Can you each tell me what it is about the other character that draws your character to them, but then I also want to know something that they have a difference of opinion on, something that, maybe threatens the foundation of their relationship, but could help them grow together?
It's a great question.
I've got an answer right off the bat.
Yeah, we talked about this a lot.
So
go ahead.
I think Superman really loves being Superman, and he loves that he has this ability to come in and save the day and be the protector and be a symbol of good and hope. But secretly, what he loves about Lois Lane is that she is his match. She isn't taken by the symbolism and the visual and sort of the ideal of Superman. She asks the hard questions. So it's actually very frustrating for Superman because he wants to be this sort of pure symbol of good, and Lois keeps finding all these ways that he screwed up a little bit, or he didn't quite, or was he really well-intentioned there, or did he think through the consequences of things there? And so it's very frustrating, but that frustration is this amazing. She's the only place he really gets that. And
Honestly, it just sounds like a normal relationship between a husband and a wife. It sounds like, I'm not saying I'm Superman, but I'm saying that my wife does the same thing. She challenges me. She keeps me honest. She grounds me. It sounds like Lois is his ground, is his sounding board, and it makes sense to me. You know, I do hope that the movie doesn't focus a ton on their relationship. It's only 2 hours long. So I hope that's not the case. A little bit of it's fine, but like we need to see the story unfold. We know that they're together, and that's great, and that's special. But I don't want to see like half the movie being all about Lois and Clark.
Can you tell me something about past iterations of the character that you wanted to hold tight to and honor in your portrayal, but then also something about the Lex we'll see in this movie that is uniquely your own?
There's so many great actors played Lex that I've adored their performances of, but we're all kind of using the same basis in the history of the comics to formulate the character. I think what's lucky for me is James's writing is so dynamic and fun, and the dialogue is so smart that you get this really rich world and characters to jump into. So I'm coming from a great place already with what's in the script and also the whole world that James has built up around that for this universe. I wasn't going in trying to do something particularly different or similar to what people had done before. I was just trying to be truthful to what I felt connected from the comics and those source materials to this script and this story, I think. Yeah, it wasn't a conscious decision to try and do something.
All right, so that's pretty great. There's not much there. Basically, he's saying that he took his inspiration was past actors like Gene Hackman and I guess Kevin Spacey, and the comics, which is exactly what you'd want him to do. You want him to play the character, not like some tech bro with Jolly Ranchers and the weird way that Michael Eisenberg played him, but play him as Lex Luthor, the powerful, mostly evil version of the character, and sort of this hyper intelligent, bigger than life, captain of industry, CEO. That's what we need to see.
I think Lex looks at Superman like a lot of, artists, print artists especially, look at AI. I think he
interesting.
sees him as a threat to his livelihood and his legacy. He's a guy who's just built his whole life around the idea of legacy and ego. This guy comes in and he thinks he's a jerk. He's just simple guy wearing a stupid costume that all of a sudden everybody loves and every woman loves, and all of the things that he cares about now are all going to him.
Like that comparison to AI and artists and how they feel about AI, instead of utilizing that as a tool, instead of teaming up with AI to produce a better world, to create better things, to excel humanity, a lot of people just instantly write off AI as this horrible world-ending, disaster that they need to fight. I don't know how many times when I was producing the Superman 78 documentary, I used AI to enhance some of the photos and animate them. Some of these old photos that, had no kind of movement whatsoever. I thought it would be really cool to actually animate them in a way that made the documentary interesting. And I gotta say, like, 20% of the comments were like, this was horrible, why did you use AI, blah blah. Well, I'll tell you, without AI I couldn't have animated those images. I couldn't have animated images of Siegel and Schuster talking about Superman in 1923 or whatever it was. AI allowed me to edit a better version of the documentary that I couldn't have done without it, because those things didn't exist. Now, could I have hired actors to like recreate that, famous image of them hunched over the table drawing Superman? Yeah, I could have. I can't afford that. Most people can't. And even then, it would take you out of it, because you would know that that's not Siegel and Schuster. And I know that people, when they see it, they know that that's not Siegel and Schuster. That is an AI recreation of them. But it still is better than just a black and white image, slowly zooming in or whatever on the page. So it's not like we used AI to make the documentary, but we definitely used AI to enhance some of these old images. I saw it as enhancing the documentary, but a lot of people instantly fought against it and just screamed and yelled in the comment section about how horrible it was. So when he says, Lex is looking at Superman the same way some of these artists looking at AI, it's going to take their jobs. It's going to, ruin their legacy. Well, really, it could enhance their jobs. It can enhance their legacy. It can allow them to do things that they couldn't have done before or couldn't afford to do before. So that's a pretty cool comparison.
So, big question, but for each of you, can you isolate the single moment of making Superman that brought you the most joy as an artist?
You're probably the most fun to work with on a day-to-day basis, but my favorite stuff was the interview scene in the first 2 days, because it was simply a scene of these two actors just having a conversation, shot for 2 days. It's a very long scene in the movie, but it is just about the way they see each other. It's the way they see the world. It's the way they see their relationship. It's the way they see journalism, and the way they see ethics at the very core. And it brings in a lot of the things that make a relationship fiery and passionate because you're opposites.
So the scene with Lois and Clark, where she is interviewing Superman, interesting. It took 2 days to shoot. It's a big part of the movie. I hope it's not a huge part of the movie. Like, I hope it's not like, 25% of the movie. I'm really hoping that we don't just go back and forth between that interview and things that are happening. That's one worry I have, is that the story is being told from an interview perspective and not some linear story. Because while that's very artistic and maybe it works for television, I don't think it works for an epic movie. I was worried about that when I first heard that the interview was like 10 minutes long. So hopefully that's not the case. I'm glad that James Gunn, I'm glad that he liked that scene and that's his favorite scene. That's great. I just hope that they don't, overdo that scene.
When Nick was cast, I thought this is one of the best things that will happen to this movie, is getting Nick Hoult.
Oh,
as
that's
Lex
awesome.
Luthor. The first time I saw him at his camera test walk out of the shadows in costume, it was like something ripped out of the page of the comics. The way he held his hand, it was so immediate. I'm sure he was still figuring stuff out, but he didn't show any of that.
Nicholas Hoult is an amazing actor. I know that he also tested for Superman, and I think that would have been a mistake. Not that he couldn't have done it, but I don't think he looks like Superman the same way he looks like Lex. And I'm stoked that he was able, that they actually cast him as Lex, because not only does he look the role, especially with that bald cap on, but he is an outstanding actor, and you need a really good actor to play the villain. Superman is not a very complex character. Lex Luthor is. You need that skilled actor to play across from Clark Kent / Superman.
There was a moment where I just looked up and it was you in the suit flying into this set, and I was like, that was just me that was like, this is like the magic of movies, this is the magic of my childhood, this is all the things I would hope it would feel like. The person I would hope playing Superman, he like embodies the character perfectly. So there was all this encapsulated, and I was just kind of standing there dumbly, like grinning, being like, oh, this is magic to be here.
I really hope that I get the same feeling when I'm in the theater. I like that his answer was that he felt like this very special moment when he saw Superman come in for the first time, and the backlit sun behind them, that sort of epic, inspiring moment that is Superman. I hope that I feel the same exact way when I'm sitting in the theater. And if I do, I think the other people will too. And I think the movie will be extremely successful, and it will kick off a huge universe for DC. And finally, I can get what I've been waiting for my entire life. A fleshed out, wonderful DC universe. I'm going to put the link to this full interview in the comment section. You should go watch it for yourself. I skipped over a lot of stuff. I really was just trying to get to like the meat and potatoes of this interview and just only focus on the stuff that I thought was really, really juicy. So if you want to watch the entire interview, I'll put the link in the description. You should definitely go do that. And besides that, please hit the subscribe button on the way to the comment section. Let me know what you guys thought of this interview, and keep talking about the DC Universe. Stay super, my friends. See you tomorrow.
Here comes the